Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Alex. That's great. If anybody has questions while I'm presenting, please feel free to interrupt me. This is a picture from a program that we did on the western slope of Colorado earlier this year. And as Alex said, we have a lot of different parts to the program. So if you've heard about CaveSim before, forgive me for some of the repeated information. And I promise there'll be interesting, new, and exciting things toward the end. The first thing I want to do is thank DCG for your support. So when you helped us in getting to the 2014 convention, which was in Huntsville, you helped us to teach a lot of non-cavers about cave conservation, exploration, and science, because whenever we go to convention, we do free public programs when we are in the area. You also helped us because you gave us the Dogwood City Grotto retired rental helmets, and we are using those still to this day for CaveSim. Obviously, this is a situation where people are not actually at risk, right? Because they're going through a small simulated cave. But thank you for allowing us to use those awesome Petzl Ekron Rock helmets. So what is CaveSim? For those of you who are unfamiliar, the first version is 60 feet of multi-level passage. And this number here, 70 feet, that was my estimate. We actually built a system for the National Park Service, as Alex mentioned, that has 117 feet of artificial passage. And the passage is not virtual reality. It has physical formations in it. All of the formations are made without ever touching a real speleothem, obviously, because I'm a caver, not a spelunker. But we do have sensors behind all of the speleothems. And so, that includes the stalactites, the stalagmites, the helictites. We've got gypsum flowers, all kinds of things with sensors behind them. And the sensors track your soft caving skills. And basically, when you exit, there are no screens inside. Kids get plenty of screen time. So when you exit the cave, then you can go over to the computer system and you can look at your score on the screen. And Alex, did you get the chance to see CaveSim when we were at NCKMS?
Yeah, I got to do it and I hit one of the sensors.
Yeah, so they beep when you touch the objects. And the new version, there are red lights that light up around the object so that if you happen to be hearing impaired, you can still determine what you bumped into. So I invented this whole system, and I operate it as CaveSim LLC. And we, as Alex said, we're based in Colorado, in Manitou Springs. You're welcome to visit me. We're about 7 minutes from Williams Canyon, where there are some amazing caves. So if you're out that way, let me know. So our educational programs it's more than just this mobile cave. We have these programs that are aligned with K-12 academic standards. And so it's really what we would call an experiential education program that's really highly regarded by schools around the country. So Alex saw me at the National Cave and Karst Management Symposium last month. I saw Bill Stringfellow there as well. And before that event, we did a program let's see, Guntersville. We were in Huntsville area. And so, whenever we go somewhere, we try and do as many school programs as we can. And the schools love it, and they love having us back because we're teaching the kids not only about caves and cave conservation, but we're teaching them about, the science of groundwater and how, the chemistry involved with caves, all kinds of related lessons. So the experience is not ADA compliant, but it is accessible to people with different ability levels. So this boy right here came to a public program that we did a couple summers ago, and his dad went through CaveSim with him. And then he went through by himself 4 times. And it's really impressive. This young man doesn't have the use of his legs, but he was able to climb up to the upper level of CaveSim. So the way that we do that is, the way we fit 60 feet of passage in here is that we have an upper level to the system. So it's really, really cool to see kids of all ability levels going through and experiencing caving. And it's more than just the trailer. We also have this really interesting SRT tower that Alex, you probably saw there in Chattanooga. And it enables us to teach multiple things. So obviously this boy on the right here, he's learning how to frog, but you'll see to his left, there's a 5-rope system here. We have a 5-to-1 setup. And so we can teach the kids about mechanical advantage and friction and forces and things like that. This was from a program that we did in Utah for the Park Service at Timpanogos Cave National Monument. And then we also are teaching kids about WNS. So this was an event that we did at a Forest Service site called Pactola Lake. I don't know if any of you made it to the NSS convention 2 summers ago, but this was a pre-convention program that we did. And here I am showing the kids a bat skeleton. And what's super cool to me about this picture is that we have the engagement of the younger kids, but we also have this high school age student engaged as well. And I'm showing them the bat skeleton to help them relate to the species, so that basically they can see, oh, look, the bat's wing has a similar skeletal morphology to our hand. And that helps them to relate to the species, so that instead of being afraid of it, they are excited and interested about bats. And then obviously when they go through the system, they're learning about conservation. And it's not just for kids, as Alex knows, having gone through, it is for adults as well. And these are people who were at a general public program that we did at Cave of the Winds a bunch of summers ago. And where have we been lately? So overall, we've been to 20 states. This year, we've been to California, Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, Tennessee, and Alabama. And thus far this year, we've done 75 days of in-person education, which is actually down from last year. Last year, we did 124 days of education, not counting all the travel time. We also do these online programs for schools. Some schools still need us to be doing online activities, even though, you know, we're a lot of schools are having us back in person. And here's just some cool pictures from some recent programs that we did. This was the second year that we visited this middle school in Austin, and a lot of the kids are in regular classes, but the pictures I'm going to show you here are from a special ed class. And this boy is the first year that these kids did the program. We put them in a bosun's chair, like we do with most of the kids, and we just haul them up the 5-to-1, and they can learn about the mechanical advantage provided by the system. But because these kids had done the program before, we put them into my harness, and they were able to learn frog on the tower, despite the fact that they, had different ability levels. So this is a recent program that we did in Carlsbad, and we were at the local band shell. And this program was so popular that we stayed open an hour after every other activity closed, just so the kids could keep going through. It was really cool. This was a bat festival that we did for the city of Carlsbad. And this is a shot of us moving Cave Passage into a new trailer that we built for Great Basin National Park. And the system is really cool. I'll show you some pictures of that here in a little bit, but it's really cool because it has a new helmet tracking system. And so we know who hit what if we have a group of people in the system together. And then we're building yet another copy of this. And this side door that's behind me here is where we're going to have a ramp. And so people who use wheelchairs can go up this ramp and into a back section, like sort of a cavernous room at the back. Forgive my voice. I had a cold a couple of weeks ago, so sorry about that. So you might wonder, why on earth does this exist? And the mission we have is to teach people of all ages to love caves, to love science and conservation and exploration. And this number here, I should update this. This is probably off by a factor of 2. I think we've probably reached 100,000 kids at this point. So what? Like, why do these programs matter at all? Why does it matter? Well, one of the things that we see as an opportunity is that we can create a generation of cave conservation advocates. And so it's not necessarily true that many of these kids are going to get into caving. Some of them probably will, but it's not necessarily that we're trying to drive up grotto membership, right? What we really want to do is build a generation of people who want to advocate for the protection of caves. We certainly tell them about grottos, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also know that kids get really excited about the science that we have to teach in our programs. And we know that science is important for solving all kinds of problems that we have. And so it's important to get kids to love science. And then, of course, we also know, as I alluded to, that kids get a lot of screen time these days, and we're trying to give them, they get a lot of competitive sports in school. We're trying to give them caving as a possible lifelong hobby that they could have that gives them physical activity, but that doesn't involve competition per se. And as I said, we do tell kids about how they can get involved. We tell them about going to caves.org and finding their local grotto. And so we do expect at some point to have more people, joining grottos. Some of the high school students who volunteered with me at the very beginning, one of them is Sierra, and Sierra works for the Park Service now. She's doing I think she's on her PhD now, in karst studies and whatnot. So it is cool to see this come full circle. Here is another recent program that we did in Custer, South Dakota. And, it's cool to see people of all ages engaged. This is a young woman who works for me named Maddie Joy. We do have a staff, so we have some educators, and then we have people who work on cave construction. And where are we headed next, right? What's our next plan? Well, this is my trailer dealer in Grand Island, Nebraska. I gave him a CaveSim shirt because he worked really hard to get the Great Basin trailer finished on time. And my son, who was 8 at the time. So we have a new trailer that we provided to Great Basin. We have a new trailer for us. Our goal is to finish our new CaveSim system and bring it to Sewanee next year for the NSS convention. And then we're going to go to Virginia for some programs, probably a week of programs, and then back to Tennessee for some programs for the Nature Conservancy. So I have said a lot of words, and I'm wondering what questions everybody has.
Dave, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm an educator, a middle school in Dalton, Georgia, and
Awesome.
if I wanted to get that program brought to our school, how do I go about doing that?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me, and I can put my contact info in the chat if you want. What we basically do is to keep life simple, we try to come to your school when something else is going on. So for example, I know that Land Trust of North Alabama is going to have us come back on November 3rd or November 5th next year because they like the program so much. And so there's a Fish and Wildlife Service visitor center that's somewhere. I'll have to look up exactly where it is, but they're interested in having us as well. So we set up this tour, and what we try to do is have these other entities pay for the transportation part, and then have the schools pay for the day of program. So we do travel with staff, and so we're looking at the current rate is about $2,000 per day, and that works out. Generally, we're working with about 200 kids in a day, and that works out to about $10 a kid, which it's pretty difficult to find anything for that rate. So, basically you would talk with me about when we could do the program, what things you are teaching that you want us to focus on, and what classes you want to work with, how many days you want. Sometimes we'll do a multi-day program. Often when we work with a middle school or a high school, we focus on certain classes. So for example, we'll focus on certain sciences, or we'll focus, what do you happen to be teaching, Anna?
Well, that's the thing is I'm a ESOL, English as a second language, and I'm a
Cool.
push-in in math and ELA. But even if it weren't for my class directly, I would love to get y'all, get you in touch with science teachers or
cool.
whatever class would be useful for. So
Yeah. Are you teaching kids who are native Spanish speakers?
yes, we have a very high Hispanic population in Dalton, 71% at our school actually. So
well, if you're interested, and this doesn't have to be of interest, but I do the programs at least partly in Spanish as well.
that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and the reason I do that is I do a lot of programs in Texas. And so even though I'm not fluent in Spanish, I only took 7 years of Spanish in middle and high school. So, but I'm still not fluent, but I do enough of the program in Spanish that the kids can understand what on earth we are doing, and they can learn some cave specific words. And it's pretty neat for them to have that connection.
So y'all will be back in this area next November, 2024.
Yes,
correct.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, yeah, I will just shoot you a message after this and we can discuss that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the good question.
Dave, do you guys have a criteria for, where you will go, or is it basically anybody that arranges it? Do you try to target, cave regions of the United States and stay away from places that are pretty void of caves, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joel. So we really try to do anywhere within the lower 48 states. I don't intend to drive to Alaska, and unfortunately, I don't have a Chinook helicopter, so I can't go to Hawaii. But it's interesting, your question about cave specific, cave regions. When we work with, like, for example, the Park Service or the Forest Service, or we work with the NSS. Some organizations want us to go to cave rich areas because they want us to be teaching the kids about, don't pour your used motor oil on the ground near sinkholes, things like that, or anywhere for that matter. But other organizations want us to go to areas where there aren't caves. So for example, the NSS last year funded some of our programs in California, in the Bay Area, where there's obviously a grotto there, but the kids, there are not as many caves in that exact region. And so it really depends upon the organization that we're working with and what their goals are, right? Obviously, the NSS wants to get more people broadly to be engaged in the idea of cave conservation. Some of the federal agencies want people, to be responsible with the caves in their local area. So it does depend. It's interesting, like in Oklahoma, we do a lot of programs in Oklahoma City, and you have to drive. Obviously, I mean, the good caves, you're going to Western Arkansas, right? Obviously there are caves in Oklahoma, but it's like they know enough about caves to think it's cool, even though they don't have a lot of caves in their local area.
Thank you.
Some love day here. Quick question. Obviously, these programs are for schools, but I have some nephews who are interested in this sort of thing. Is it, if we knew where you were hosting one of these events, would it be appropriate to bring children from outside from the cold to your program?
Yeah, Jim, if you messaged me directly and I could get permission from the school to have you come after school, and it was a small group, we could certainly do that. The other thing that you can do is we can figure out where are we going to be that has a public program. So for example, last month we were at a site called Chapman Mountain Preserve. It's on the north side of Huntsville, and that was a free public program. And they intend to have us back. That's the program that I was mentioning to Anna a minute ago, that they intend to have us back mid-November. If you happen to be going to convention next year, you can bring them to convention. We always allow anybody to do CaveSim for free. We really try to avoid charging people as individuals. We really try and get funding from the organization so that we're not, we don't have financial transactions getting in the way of education. So Jim, if you'll message me, we could figure out how that might look. But during convention, obviously is a good time. I've done programs before for TELUS Science Museum in Cartersville, and I'm trying to convince them to have me back. So, maybe you can send them a message and tell them, hey, have Dave back.
I'll do that. TELUS works out perfectly.
Good. Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm also going to put a link, cavesim.com/calendar. And that just shows you where we are in the lower 48. So the other thing that I didn't get the chance to mention is that we make all our technology. So I'm in my lab here, and I've been working today on some of these boards. I have our boards made in the US, and I have a robot that loads the components on the board. So this is a sensor board. It's got a couple of microcontrollers on it, and a bunch of indicator LEDs and special connectors and all kinds of things. So it's really fun for me to get to design the technology and the software, as well as designing the physical caves. I went to MIT for electrical engineering, and so I get to do software, hardware, firmware, build caves, make artificial formations. It's really a really fun job.
Dave, do you feel like the size of your latest trailer is like optimal, or would you have a vision to go to like semi-sized trailer,
Yeah,
or is that really bigger than makes sense?
That's a great question, Joel. So the thing about the current size is that it enables kids, with the Great Basin cave system and the system that we're building for us, it enables kids to have enough passage to explore that they can stay engaged, and by the time they basically, they don't get lost in the system, right? And mom and dad don't get worried about where the kids are. If we were to go to a semi-sized system, it would make a lot more sense for that to be like in a building, right? Like Alex was talking about how we have the system at the climbing gym, because at that point you can, like we put emergency exits in that system. We have fire sprinklers. The other issue with a semi is that you'd have to go through way stations. You have a CDL, all of those things. And so we've thought about that. It's also easier to get our system into most places, like a Chapman Mountain Preserve. You wouldn't want to drive down the gravel road probably with a semi. So the other consideration too, Joel, is deck height. So with our system, they're custom trailers, but they're basically snowmobile trailers. And so they have a nose door, and you're only 18 to 24 inches, depending on how you put the jacks down, off of the ground. And as opposed to a semi deck is way up high, and so there'd be some safety considerations there that we haven't wanted to tackle. But that's a great question. It's possible we could build one. How many of you have seen CaveSim before? John has. Alex? Cool. Nice. How many of you are going to be going? Any of you are going to be going to convention next year? Some yes. Cool. Nice. Awesome. Well, make sure you look for us there. I'm hoping that we'll have our new system finished by then.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for inviting me. And if you feel like it, you can, it's up to the grotto, but if you would like to let me know if there are any opportunities for us to apply, like we've done in the past, for funding from the grotto, for example, to offset the cost of getting to convention. If that's of interest and you need me to do any kind of paperwork or anything, we do have a formal partnership with CRF. So as I said, we are set up as an LLC, but because a lot of organizations can't support for-profit organizations, we have a partnership with CRF. And basically, most grottos just go, if they're supporting us, they go directly to us, and we put up sponsor info on the side of the trailer and on the website and on Facebook, things like that. Let me know if that's ever of interest.
We'll definitely have to work on that. But we do grants, so
neat. Or we could help you to get to Anna's school.
Awesome. Thank you for presenting.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, so much.
Thank you all.
Awesome. So now we're going to do new member introductions. So